Mike Radich here, and I'm now joined on the phone by VFC Featherweight champion Ryan Roberts. Ryan, how are you?
Doing well.
Ryan, you got a fight coming up December 14th at VFC 41. How's training been going for the fight?
Man, camp has been awesome. It's a little bit different. Some of the people that I had initially in my last couple camps have moved, but man, the camp's been going really well. I'm in great shape. The weight's coming down good, so I'm ready to go.
Are you training out of Premier Combat Center or Disorderly Conduct?
I'm training out of Premier Combat Center.
Okay. And how long have you been training there?
Man, I think that since it started, I was kind of one of the founders.
Okay.
It's, I think 6 years now. We were in a barn for a while, and now we actually have a real nice facility here in Omaha, and got some good teammates. Laramie Schaefer, Cody Land, Derek Minner, Joe Ellenberger, Anthony Smith, Jason Brill, Houston Alexander, amongst quite a few others. But for the smaller guys, I'm fortunate to have a bunch of 35ers and 45ers, like the Joe Ellenbergers, being a 55er, and Cody Land and Derek Minner and Laramie Schaefer all, help push me every day.
Mm-hmm. Besides Ryan Jensen, who are some of your coaches?
Other than Ryan Jensen, we have Danny Molina, who's my striking coach. Danny's kind of worked his way up the ranks, and he's doing a really good job coaching us on the striking. We also have Kurt Padani, who's a world champion Muay Thai kickboxer, who's in the gym. He also owns it with Ryan Jensen. Other than Ryan Jensen, we have a black belt out of Brazil, Gracie Baja, named Felipe, and I honestly can't pronounce Felipe's last name, so I won't even disrespect him and mess it up. But that's pretty much our core group. We also have a couple MMA instructors and other jiu-jitsu instructors. Scott Morton, Jason Brills is one of the wrestling coaches, along with Zach Staller. Mm-hmm. So got a damn good group.
Mm-hmm. You're going to be fighting LC Davis coming up on December 14th. This fight was actually supposed to happen, I believe, back in March of this year, but you withdrew due to injury. What exactly was the injury, and how severe was it?
I had a Category 1 tear in my PCL and a Category 2 tear in my MCL. It actually happened about 2 weeks prior to the event. I was down in Houston, Texas for my day job, work training. I was going to a local MMA gym. I was rolling around with Todd Moore. And at the time, I didn't know I'd heard it. I just kind of felt weird, and somebody came up and said, "Hey, I heard that pop," and neither one of him nor Todd, had heard anything. And I was like, "Well, I feel fine." Mm-hmm. Wasn't until I started getting done with practice and walking out to the car, and he felt a little weird. I was like, "Oh, maybe I did tweak that guy a little bit." Between the gym in Houston and the hotel I was staying at in Houston, my knee swelled up to about 3 times its size, and I couldn't even bend it. Went into the hospital there. They told me, "Well, you might want to wait till you get back to have surgery," and get back here to Omaha and had the doctors fix me up, and it's a little tender, but it's ready to go. Mm-hmm. It's as ready to go as it'll ever be.
Mm-hmm. So that's what's caused this year layoff?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Yep. Now you're going to be taking on LC Davis. What are your thoughts about him as an opponent?
LC is a stud, man. He's an animal. He's been on a tear lately, just, stopping people. So he's going to come in a very gamed opponent. 135 is his weight class. I'm new to the division. My weight's coming off pretty good. I still got a little ways to go, but LC, he's going to be coming out tough. He's going to be coming out hungry. So I'm looking for a heck of a show to put on for the fans. Mm-hmm. He likes to stand and bang, and so do I. I like the ground. I kind of like it everywhere. So we're just kind of not a real big game plan here. It's going to go out and just be reactive. Go out there and try to impose my will. And I'm sure he's going to do the same.
Mm-hmm. So his belt is on the line in this fight?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. And just curious, why is this fight happening? Is it because there's nobody of your caliber in his weight class, and there's nobody of his caliber in your weight class? Why is this fight taking place? Is it a grudge match? Do you not like him? Does he not like you? Why is this fight taking place?
Elsie and I have been looking to compete against each other for quite a while. Honestly, it was probably a decade ago. I was asked to compete against him. in some show in Iowa. I don't even remember what it was, and that didn't happen. I was kind of, I'm a fan of LC's. I've followed his career for a long time and always wanted to compete against him, especially when he was at 45. When he moved to 35, it got me thinking maybe I should try to make the move. And I've attempted it once and missed the mark by about 0.4 of a pound when I fought Zach Mikowski in Bellator. When he was, at the time, he was a champ.
Right.
And then I suffered a really bad ankle surgery or injury in that fight. Had to have complete reconstructive surgery on my left ankle, and I was out for a little over a year. After that, then I came and I fought Joshua Rocho for the 145-pound belt here in Victory. Had a great showing there, and then in training for LC, ended up hurting my right knee. Kind of told that my right knee was probably a little bit out of whack from my left ankle hurting, and me trying to overcompensate by using my right knee, my right leg a little bit more. So kind of funny how all that stuff works, but man, I feel great now. Healthy, haven't had any injuries at all in this camp. I'm ready to go. A couple more hard days, and then it's get that weight off time.
What are you doing differently diet-wise and maybe exercise-wise, if that's the way to take the weight off? What are you doing differently this time so you can make the weight? Because you mentioned that you missed the mark against Zach Mikowski. So are you doing anything differently this time to make the weight come off?
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe it's my age and maturity level, but I'm extremely disciplined now, a lot more so than I have been in the past. On top of that, I'm just kind of a short, stocky guy. I put on muscle really easy when I start eating animal proteins. So I haven't really ate any animal proteins. I've juiced a lot. I've a lot of fruits and vegetables thrown in that juicer, making up 5 meals a day. I did a full 8-day cleanse on that, dropped some good weight, kind of maintained that. Now I'm going to do it probably starting on Friday to get back on the juice and try to knock off these last 20 pounds.
Why now? Why did you decide to make the move to bantamweight now? Is it because, this is the right fight, this is the right offer, great opponent you're going to be facing? Is that what prompted the move, or was it just that you should be down at 135? That's probably the better weight class for you. Could you explain why now was the best time for you to make the move?
As far as now, it's mainly I wanted, because I felt bad for backing out of LC's fight. It was the first time in my career after 30-some pro fights, having to actually back out of the fight. First time I'd ever done it. I just felt bad, and I felt I owed him the respect of getting back down there, working my way down. I started my weight cut at 178 pounds when I made the decision to come back and go after LC. So I started cutting weight about 16 weeks out when I got word from Ryan Starter that, hey, this could happen. Initially, LC didn't want the fight. Didn't take much of a couple Facebook posts, and man, he was all over it again. So here we are. LC and I, we don't really have, I don't disrespect LC, but we do have a little blood. I think I'm the toughest bantamweight featherweight in the Midwest, and I think he thinks the same thing. So just that alone, it doesn't necessarily there's bad blood, but I think we both are eager to compete against one another.
Yeah, I definitely take my hat off to both of you guys because, for some reason nowadays, guys don't want to fight other tough guys. Great guys don't want to fight great guys unless they're in a very big show. So I give you guys both credit that you're fighting one another. I mean, you can make the argument that you guys both should be in the UFC. So I definitely give you guys both credit.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, I've been hearing that, so and. Until we get the phone call, but absolutely, LC. I mean, this fight could be happening on a UFC card. But fortunate enough for the Omaha fans, and which are a majority of my fans, they're going to get to see it here in Omaha on a stacked card. Anthony Smith and Josh Muir,
right?
Jason Brills. It's like, what more could you ask for? Mirsad Betrick. It's just there's a lot of studs, and I somehow LC and I are fortunate enough to headline a card of that caliber.
What attracted you the most to this fight? Is it because you guys have some history and you guys were supposed to fight before? Is it because he's been on such a great roll right now? He's on a nice win streak. He's basically on the cusp, like you, of getting in to the UFC or a big show. Is it more of what he's done lately, or is it because you have the past with him that made you want this fight?
I think it's a total package. I don't think it's either or. I think it's both. The fact that I've been a fan. I've been wanting to compete against him for a long time. Now that he run. You know, we were supposed to fight after I'd won the 45-pound belt for the 35. I had to back out. He had a big win. He had some words to say that I don't think he actually believed I was injured. It kind of made me laugh. But, you know, so, I mean, there's been a little smack talking. There has been a little bit of, you know, I want to get in there. I want to beat up LC Davis. And I think in doing so, that's going to earn me the respect of the UFC and maybe some other bigger promotions, kind of move my career forward. I'm fortunate, I guess. I get to look at every fight like it could possibly be my last fight. 35, I don't have to work for them. I don't fight for the money. I have a great job, so I'm fortunate enough I get to look at every fight and train for every fight like it's my last fight. If my last fight happens to be against LC Davis, to me that's awesome. You know, if I get to go out there and put on all the hard work that I've been putting into this camp, and I get to go out there and show that, and something happens and it's my last fight, I'll have no regrets.
You have fought in the UFC once before. You fought Marcus Aurelio back in 2008. It was a fight that was over pretty quickly. You were dropped, and then you were eventually armbarred. You know, not a performance that you were hoping for, I'm sure. But what happened there? You know, usually nowadays guys get multiple chances in the UFC, maybe 2 or 3 before they're released. You only got the one fight. What exactly went on there? Was it back in those days when they were just doing the one-fight deals and they weren't impressed with that performance and then they chose not to re-sign you? Was it maybe something where they were so disappointed that they just cut you automatically? You know, could you explain what happened there, why you only got the one chance?
You know, I never really had much communication with the UFC. That was my manager at the time, and I have no idea what happened. I just told him no longer on the roster. After I was told that night I'd have another opportunity, that was it. I took the fight on 5 days' notice.
Right.
After Spencer Fisher had gotten injured, and yeah, as you've seen, that's kind of how it turned out. So, and at the time, I think it's all a timing thing. I think, in the grand scheme of things, it's probably the best thing for me. Because after that fight, I went on I lost 5 more fights in 2 years after that, not without one win.
Right.
Since then, I'm 9-1.
Right.
So, I was struggling with some demons in my life. Alcoholism was a big issue with me. I didn't drink frequently, but when I drank, I way overindulged and always got in trouble. So I had to do some growing up. And, man, I'll tell you what, the last 5 years have been awesome. Couldn't be happier with where I'm at in my life, and I'm just lucky enough to get to compete and be healthy and go out there and put on a good show.
Now, you mentioned the demons that you were fighting during that 5-fight losing streak. During that time, did you were so into some other stuff that had nothing to do with fighting that you really didn't care about winning or losing, or was it just that your confidence was so low and you just couldn't, for whatever reason, you couldn't get out of the hole? You know, how were you able to dig yourself out of the hole that is, right now you're doing better than ever, and like you mentioned, you've only lost one fight in the last 4 or 5 years, whatever it's been. During that time, what was your confidence level like and stuff like that, and then also how were you able to dig yourself out?
I'm not exactly sure what my mindset was exactly back then. Maybe it was just a lack of confidence. I didn't think I deserved it. But Christ is what turned me around. First, it was state-ordered AA and things like that. And once I realized that, maybe I do have an issue, opening up my eyes and maybe maturing a little bit, it turned me around. And then getting on board with Christ and understanding who he is and what he is and actually really following him and listening is what I contribute to turning my life around.
This rough patch, did that all stem from after the Aurelio fight, or was it based on the fact that you lost that fight and in the fashion you did, or was it before that you were fighting these demons and it just never affected you? Somehow you were able to still do the stuff that you were doing, but it didn't affect you in the cage. Was it something before the Aurelio fight, or did it stem from that fight?
Oh, it was before.
Okay.
It was just the Aurelio fight was kind of just the pinnacle, so to speak. It was definitely before. It's just the way in which I was living life. At the time I was working really hard, had a good job, but I worked hard and I played even harder. It was just not being responsible, not being accountable. And once you start understanding what those two things are and start putting them in perspective, You can be physically great at anything, and everybody sees those guys at practice who are just tougher than heck at practice. You get them in the cage, man, and they just freeze, or they just don't perform like they do in practice. Then you get the guys who are practice like crap, but man, they get in the cage and they just shine. That's their home. I'm more the guy who wasn't great at practicing for a long time, but boy, I'd get in the cage and I'd shine. So I'd half-ass practices, but I'd get in the cage and I'd shine. Well, everybody else, I think, just started getting better, and I wasn't getting better. So that's kind of what I contribute a lot of those losses to during that time. Once I start taking the sport a little more seriously, start giving back to it a little bit more, it started giving back to me.
Definitely. You obviously are doing very well now. You mentioned the one loss to Zach Makovsky, but other than that, you've looked very good. What do you attribute that to? Is it because you're getting older, you're getting wiser, and you're starting to put things together more? Because you've looked better than you have before you were in the UFC. Earlier in your career, you've improved so much. What do you attribute that to? Is it the training you're getting now? Is it you're getting wiser? What's led to this turnaround?
I think it's a combination of just, maybe getting wiser, understanding what I'm doing, but it's more of practicing. Going in and just doing the technique classes. Go do Muay Thai classes. Don't skip them. Get in there, give everything you got in those Muay Thai classes. Go do the jiu-jitsu classes. Get in the gi, roll in the gi. Not just going to MMA classes, not just going to team training and sparring, but doing a lot of the techniques. And in doing that, I was just a tough wrestler who been in a lot of bar fights when I got into MMA. That's honestly was my only background. And it worked well for me for a while. Now with, all the new generations and all the gyms opening up throughout the country, there's so many great athletes in this sport that you can't just be an athlete and compete well. You have to start understanding all the disciplines and practicing those. Not maybe so much to practice them to do them, but to defend them. And I spend a lot of time in the gym. So I contributed primarily just to that. And then maybe the fact, I'm 35 years old, maybe I got some of that old man strength in me like my old man used to have, and, getting a little wiser, learning when to control yourself, your breathing, and then when to explode and let it all out. And then being able to maintain that. And I don't know, I almost feel more like one of the marathon runners who they don't get good till they're in their upper 30s, because my last 5 fights have all been title fights. Most of them all went the distance, and I've came out the winner in every one of them. So other than the Makovsky fight, all of them, when Rick Glenn, that one went to a draw, which is, in my opinion, horse shit. It was in his hometown, and I definitely won 4 of the 5 rounds, but they called it a draw. So other than that, all the other fights I've had have all been title fights. You got Nick Mamalis, Josh Orocho, and just being able to beat them up for 5 rounds and still having some at the end to try to finish them. Maybe it is my age.
Now, those belts that you've won in these title fights, are those your only belts, or did you win some early in your career?
I had I think 3 earlier in my career.
But the victory belt, is that the one that's near and dear to your heart? Is that the one that you're most proud of?
Oh, you know what? I wouldn't say the most proud of. I'm proud of every one of them, man.
Okay.
You go in there and you compete against somebody else who's a potential champion. You're able to defeat them. Every one of those is a proud moment for me. I don't, whenever I'm able to do it in my hometown and the family's able to be there, that means a little more to me. But just being able to compete with all these warriors and these athletes, it's a great honor. And getting to go against someone like LC in my hometown it's a dream come true, to be honest with you. That one, out of all of them, this fight coming up will probably mean the most. Win or lose, it's gonna mean the most, and it's gonna be a good night. Doesn't matter how it turns out, it's gonna be a good night.
Now, obviously, you'll be able to say better after the fight happens, but just basically looking at LC on paper and then comparing him to the guys that you have fought recently, where does he rank? Is he number 1? Is he the top guy, or is he number 2 behind Makovsky? Where do you think he fits in?
He's he's hovering. He's right there, just like you said. I think your opinion is kind of equal to mine. He's somewhere right in there. I mean, Rick Glenn's tougher than crap too.
Right.
That kid, since my fight, he's went on a heck of a on a roll, and I'm really sorry for him that he got injured leading up to his World Series of fighting.
Yep. Absolutely. Yep. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay.
I was just agreeing. He got injured. He's supposed to fight this weekend for World Series of Fighting for their belt. So go ahead, continue. Sorry.
Well, yeah, but he's tougher, and he's one of them quiet, tough guys that you don't really hear a lot about. He doesn't have he's not a real vocal guy, so he doesn't market himself great. But at the same time, he's just tougher than nails. So I mean, you put LC, he's definitely up there on that echelon of great fighters I've been able to compete against. I've had my ass kicked against some great ones like Dwayne Ludwig and Aurelio and Cowboy Cerrone. But I put LC, he's definitely all up there on that same podium. He's up there high, so being able to come out of this one with a win is going to be awesome.
Mm-hmm. Now, if you could step out of the situation and just look at this fight on paper and look at yourself, what do you think his camp is telling him to do against you in this fight?
That's a good question. I think I'm a horrible matchup for LC. He's very technical. He's got great striking. His ground is okay. He's never been known for a great ground game. He was a wrestler, but his wrestling defense, looks all right. But his ground game, as far as jiu-jitsu is from what I've seen and what I know, it's not awesome. Me, I'm more of a brawler. I'm not technical. I'm get in your face, explode, keep the pressure on. And I think I'm very excited looking at this as a fan, and like you said, looking at this on paper. I think if he can keep it standing, he can keep his distance. It's going to be a better thing for him. Mm-hmm. If I get my hands on him and I'm pinning him up and I'm keeping the pressure on him and I'm keeping his back to the cage, it's going to be a long night for him. Mm-hmm. If I'm able to get him on the ground, it's going to be an even longer night for him.
Mm-hmm. Will the surface that you're fighting in, that box cage or square cage, whatever you want to call it, that Victory uses, will that work to your advantage? Will that make it easier to hunt him down? Because,
Absolutely. You don't got an octagon. The corners are a lot sharper.
Right.
I'll be able to cut them off a lot easier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you get the best of both worlds in there. You get the ability to press him up against the cage, because if you're fighting in a ring, you'd probably go through the ropes, or you'd take him down and then he'd hook the ropes or go through the ropes and you'd have to be started in the middle. So I really like that thing. You get the best of both worlds. You're able to cut him off because of the squareness of the cage, but you're also able to do the grappling because you have the fence. How much does that benefit your style?
A lot.
Regardless of who you're fighting, yeah.
I mean, it's in my opinion, it's a huge benefit to me as the way in which I fight and my style, and the fact that I fought in that cage a number of times.
Right.
It's not a typical cage. It's not your octagon or hexagon or round cage. It's a square, and we call it the kennel, and I really enjoy fighting in the kennel.
Mm-hmm. How many times have you fought for Victory in the past?
Oh, shoot, I don't even know. 8 or so. I've won their 141st featherweight tournament they ever had. I won that. I beat Joe Doherty and Zach. What was Zach's last name? Zach Wolf. Was able to, in a tournament, one night, 4-man tournament. But before that, I'd fought 3 times, so there makes 5, and since then, probably 8 to 10 times.
Oh, I see. Now, you mentioned that this fight is going to be taking place in your hometown. What kind of crowd are you expecting? Obviously, you're hoping the entire arena is cheering for you, but personally, who have you invited to the fight?
Oh, man, I've got a decent-sized following, so this arena is one of the coolest arenas I've ever competed in. It's just awesome. It's built for MMA and for Victory, the way in which they do their production. This new arena is going to have 5,000 screaming fans. LC is going to have a few fans there, but you're not going to know they're there with my fans. So, and if I start getting hurt or if I start getting on a roll, I do feel that the fans will be able to play a part in that. I do think that, they'll be able to keep me energized and keep me moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Now, in this fight, who do you think has more pressure on them to get a win? Obviously, Elsie's belt is on the line, but he's 2 years younger than you are, and you're both trying to make it to a big show. Who has more pressure on them in this fight, or do you think, considering the circumstances, it's kind of neutral?
I think it's completely neutral. I honestly, I have that mindset and that attitude that this could be my last fight.
Right.
And in my opinion, that's a huge plus for me. If I don't ever get a fight after this fight, that's so be it. Like I said, I don't need to fight for the money. I don't do it for the fame. I do it because it's something I truly enjoy. It's great therapy for me. The money I do make off of it, it's just a big benefit. It's an added benefit to my family. So, which drives me. But, back in the past when I was losing, it's because I was fighting for money. Those 5 losses or 6 losses I had combined in 2 years was all, I had to have that money, and I was always thinking I had to get the win. And when I didn't get the win, man, that was just devastated me. So, in maturing, I realized you can't look at a fight like that. You can't go in with that mentality. You got to go in and do it because you love it, because it's what you're meant to do, and have fun. Win or lose, have a blast. Go out there and do everything you possibly can and have a blast. So, as far as the pressure, I don't feel really any pressure, even though it's in my hometown and I got a bunch of people there. I'm pretty transparent. I've had this similar type of interview locally, and most of my fans kind of know where I stand. LC, I think he's got a little more pressure on him. It's his belt. He don't want to lose that guy. He loses to me, that takes a hell of a step back. He's got 4 or 5 wins lined up. He'd like to, get another one over me. But if he loses, man, that's like starting all over again. And if he starts thinking about it like that, that's definitely some pressure on him. Mm-hmm. So I'd have to say maybe more of the pressure is probably on LC than it is me.
Mm-hmm. You're obviously trying to make it back to a big show. I'm just curious because all these fighters have different opinions on what a big show is. I'm just curious, what is a big show to you? Is it the UFC or nothing? Is it the UFC and Bellator? Is it the UFC, Bellator, and World Series of Fighting? Is it just the UFC and World Series of Fighting? What do you consider a big show?
I'm not real happy with Bellator right now. Right. They, after my injury, they didn't take care of everything, and
right.
It really got me disgruntled with them, so I'll just kind of leave it at that. But I'm calling the big show I'd call the World Series of Fighting a big show. Just anything that you guys can get out there and you can have your fans watch you on TV, I consider that a big show. You get RFA, and fans are able to watch you, from California, fans are able to watch you from Texas. That's what I consider a big show. UFC, absolutely. It's, UFC's just, they treat their fighters better than any other organization as far as when you're traveling with them, the way in which, you live. I've fought for most of the organizations. I haven't fought for World Series of Fighting or RFA, but familiar with the way they operate, and, I consider any of them. Legacy, RFA, World Series of Fighting, Bellator, UFC, they're all a big show to me.
Mm-hmm. I see. Now, Ryan, throughout this interview, you've mentioned that besides fighting, you also have another job. I'm just curious, what is that other job?
I'm an account manager for a large manufacturer here in Omaha, Nebraska. I do all the sales and engineering we build concrete storm piping and manholes. Mm-hmm. And it's a challenging career, challenging job. There's a lot that goes into it, and it's not something you just go sit in an office and hammer out. I'm out negotiating with big contractors and engineers and city officials, and I really enjoy it. I get to get out and speak and shake a lot of hands and meet a lot of individuals. So it challenges me as equally as MMA does. There's times that I wish I could respond to my day job like I do in MMA and just beat the shit out of some of the guys, but
right.
I can't do that. I got to be a little more professional.
Right. How often do you train? Because obviously you work the normal hours of the day, and then training-wise, how many times a day do you train, and does it change when you have a fight coming up?
It changes. I train every day. Typically in the morning before work, I head in. Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, I always take lunch. I have lunch practice, which is a good team training here at Premier. Tuesday, Thursdays, depending on kind of what I got going on at work. If I can break free, I'll head to practice. But then at night, I gotta balance the family life. I got a 7-month-old daughter who is just as cute as a button. So balancing that family life with the wife, so Monday nights, it's Stella swim lessons and what we got going on now. Wednesday nights is family night. We head over to my sister's house, and we call it FDN, family dinner night, and just kind of do that number. So that's where I'll be heading after I get off the phone with you.
Mm-hmm. Ryan, last question. I'm sure you've thought about it a long time because you were supposed to fight him back in March and you were supposed to fight him a couple of years ago. How do you see this fight ending? I'm sure you played this fight in your mind, 1,000 times over again. How do you see the fight ending?
TKO.
Ryan, real quick before I let you go, do you have any sponsors you'd like to thank, and is there anything you'd like to say to the fans?
Absolutely. I have a few good sponsors here. So Animal Instinct has been behind me for a long time, so I really want to thank them. Kosama Omaha, 2 Men in a Truck Moving. They'll be moving us into our new house once we get that finished here late spring. I'm drawing a blank. Oh, Porky Butts. I got a friend who owns a barbecue competition team called Porky Butts, and they're going to do the housewarming. So that's kind of my sponsorship for this fight. Is I give him some publicity, and he caters the food for my housewarming party. So I'll just leave it at that.
Ryan, thank you for taking the time to talk. I really appreciate it. Good luck December 14th at VFC 41 against LC Davis.